Quando essas estrelas, né, caem, aí as equipes também desaparecem. É uma coisa engraçada. Parece um teatro, não é? Uma peça de teatro que tem uma grande estrela. E se a estrela não estiver bem, o time também não vai bem.
Yo fui a comprar zapatos una vez y me siguieron 500 motitos. Pues ya estaban preparados. Alguien le habría dicho. Fui con mi señora y con mi hija. Yo me acuerdo que le dije a mí, mátenme, pero no toquen a Dalma porque no juego más en el Napoli.
How can a mere sport command so much money, exert such influence, demand the passion of so many? Football is a history of clubs and national teams, of shared triumphs and disappointments. A team game. But always great players will outshine others. They are the superstars.
Mas eu acredito na associação da superestrela com o que faz, se realmente é dentro do campo, se ele decide, se ele define um jogo, se ele faz a diferença entre os outros jogadores.
If you take the money away, then a lot of the footballers would still be playing football anyway, so money has nothing to do with it.
C'est vrai que c'est beaucoup de pression, c'est quelque chose qui fait partie du football, qui fait partie du football aujourd'hui. Et il faut l'accepter avec ce che cela comporte, le bien o le male.
Credo che poi uno si fa anche l'abitudine quello, di riuscire comunque a dividere la tua carriera dalla tua vita privata, solo così puoi resistere.
I believe every kid wants to play football, and if you are there, you also want to belong and be a star.
In the summer of 2001, Zinedine Zidane became the first $60 million man when he was transferred from Juventus to Real Madrid. 4 years earlier, Ronaldo had caused a sensation with his record $30 million transfer. By the time of Zidane's transfer to Real, the players in the French and Brazilian squads at France '98 had been involved in transfer deals worth over $750 million. Yet the final between the two teams was billed as a contest between Zidane and Ronaldo.
La pression, elle a toujours été sur les épaules de tous les joueurs, et surtout avant une grande compétition. Pas beaucoup de personnes nous voyaient arriver très loin. Nous, on y a cru, on a tout mis de notre côté pour faire quelque chose de bien. On l'a fait, on a réussi.
Such is the status of the superstar in modern football, that Ronaldo's illness before the game and his indifferent display during it is blamed for Brazil's 3-0 defeat. It seemed that at the end of the 20th century, the cult of the highly paid superstar was all that mattered in football. How different it had been at the start of the century. The world's first football rivalry between Scotland and England brought with it the creation of the first superstars. Scotland dominated the early encounters between the two, and when the Scottish Football Association refused to sanction professionalism after their English counterparts had in 1885, it was the start of the first wave of player migration, as players went in search of a better living.
English clubs had representatives who were known as agents, who came up and attempted to suborn Scottish players and get them to go south. And there was a magazine called Scottish Sport, which was very irate at this, and said, who amongst the Scots would be so base as to deliver a fellow Scot to slavery for base gold? The answer was quite a lot, actually, quite a lot of them.
By the start of the 20th century, there was a thriving transfer market, though unlike today, the players saw none of the proceeds, unless separate negotiations were conducted illegally under the table. In 1905, English international Alf Common was transferred from Sunderland to Middlesbrough for a world record £1,000. With the help of Common, Middlesbrough managed to avoid relegation to the second division. Their investment had paid off. Wages for the players remained low and were little more than the factory workers who paid to watch them every week. They were capped. Contracts were binding. And a players' union formed in 1907 by the Manchester United and Wales captain Billy Meredith was largely ineffectual. Leading players like Meredith had to cash in on their stardom in other ways. Around the world, professionals remained largely from poor backgrounds, though by the 1920s, that was beginning to change.
On a commencé à comprendre que ça pouvait atteindre à toutes les classes sociales, parce qu'il y avait une partie de la société plus élevée qui trouvait que leurs enfants ou leurs fils ne devaient pas faire du professionnalisme. Le professionnalisme, c'était dans les études, ou être avocat, ou être ingénieur, ou médecin, enfin, c'était la mentalité.
In 1924, Europe had the first glimpse of South American footballers at the Paris Olympics of that year. For many Europeans, it was also their first glimpse of a black player, and they were dazzled by the skills of José Andrade as Uruguay won gold. Such was Andrade's fame that he stayed behind in Paris for a month and was often seen in the company of the illustrious Josephine Baker. In Brazil, the biggest star of 1920s football was Paulistano striker Arthur Friedenreich. The 1,329 goals he scored in a career spanning 4 decades is disputed, but if true, is a world record unlikely ever to be beaten. This is the only one of those goals caught on film for posterity. In Europe, Giuseppe Meazza had emerged as the most successful footballer on the continent. He led Italy to victory in both the 1934 and 1938 World Cups, though his reputation off the pitch matched his exploits on it.
Avesse poi avuto una testa un po' più a posto, perché faceva una vita da morire, insomma, lui era mai a casa, era sempre in giro, e non era sposato, però era bravo come il sole.
Like many talented players, Meazza asked for and received preferential treatment. He was the only player in the Italian national team allowed to smoke, and at his club Inter, it was only his sensational scoring record that bailed him out of many tricky situations. He had a habit of drinking the night before games, and once woke up just half an hour before kick-off.
Fortuna che abitavo vicino all'arena e sono arrivato lì tutto trafelato, Pozzani che mi guardava, i giocatori, mancavano 5 minuti per entrare in campo, io ero svelto nel cambiarmi, in 5 minuti mi sono cambiato, mi sono presentato in campo, naturalmente sentivo i dirigenti che dicevano beh dopo raggiamo i conti e vedremo come è andata, cosa ha fatto questo qui, dove è stato fino adesso. Per fortuna mia, durante i primi minuti di quella partita lì segnai 3 gol e così tutto è andato a posto. Meno male.
On the 23rd of January 1939, Vienna awoke to the news that its most celebrated football star had died an untimely death at the age of 35. Matthias Schindler, the son of poor Czech immigrants to Austria, is still regarded as the greatest footballer the country has ever produced.
Schindler, würde ich sagen, ist durch diesen frühen Tod zum endgültigen Mythos in dieser Stadt und zur Legende in dieser Stadt geworden. Es ist eine Stadt, wo Genies früh vollendet sind und in jungen Jahren sterben. Die Legende um Mozart, die Legende um Schubert und Ähnliches. Schindler reiht sich hervorragend in diese Reihe der legendenhaften Mythologisierungen des jung verstorbenen Genies.
Schindler was the darling of the Austrian sports press and of cafe society in Vienna. His fame derived from being a key member of the Austrian Wunder team of the early 1930s. Nicknamed the Man of Paper due to his slight build, he didn't like training, smoked, drank, was a compulsive gambler and had a string of relationships with prostitutes. When Germany annexed Austria in March 1938, Schindler refused to play for the new Greater Germany team and retired from football.
Wurde schlussendlich, als die Gestapo einen Geheimakt über ihn anlegt, als Sozialdemokrat, als Judenfreund und als tschechischer Nationalist bezeichnet. Etwas, was in der Zeit um 1938 als überaus subversiv, gefährlich und eigentlich als Voraussetzung für ein späteres Todesurteil angesehen werden kann.
Schindler's death in 1939 was shrouded in mystery. After being found dead with a prostitute called Camilla Castagnola, the investigation conducted by the Nazis in just 2 days concluded they had died from accidental gas poisoning. Mysteriously, all the documents from the investigation soon disappeared.
Immer wieder wurde auch die These von Selbstmord oder Doppelselbstmord, vor allem von den Sportjournalisten aus dieser Zeit vertreten.
Schindler s ní chodil a ona se nějak dozvěděla, víte, že Schindler si chtěl nechat. Tak ona se mu chtěla mstít, jo, a pochopení tak ho pozvala na rozloučenou, abych to řekl správně úplně, na rozloučenou, víte, kde mu nalila nějaký jed do láhve, no a tu láhve přinesla, ale vypila jí ona napřed a pak on. A oba dva zemřeli.
Andere Möglichkeiten wären banalerweise ein Racheakt aus dem Zuhältermilieu, aus dem Umkreis eben jenes Amerika-Maxl, für den Camilla Castagnola gearbeitet hatte. Es wäre auch denkbar, dass es sich schlicht und einfach um einen simplen und banalen Unfalltod handelt.
The real cause of his death will never be known, but that just adds to the legend that is Matthias Schindler. At his funeral, 15,000 Viennese lined the streets to pay their respects to a man who in the early 1930s had helped make Austria the most admired team in the world. In post-war football, the status of players continued to rise. In 1947, Tommy Lawton was transferred to Notts County for a world record £20,000. But wages in England were still restricted to £12 a week. The wealth of later years was still a far-off dream.
Well, there's certainly money in some sports, but I can only speak for cricket and football. In those games, there's certainly not a fortune to be made in a hurry. But still, we're players and not financiers. And so long as we get an enjoyable game once or twice a week, well, why worry?
In the Cold War era, communist countries attempted to turn football stars into model citizens. Many of the players were officially in the armed forces. Some achieved high rank, like the galloping major, Ferenc Puskás. In 1981, Puskás returned to Hungary, having spent 25 years in exile. His life had come full circle. From communist hero to traitorous villain after he fled Hungary in 1956 to his rehabilitation in 1981.
Hiszen, mint futballistának, világ egyik legnagyobb futballistájának tartom ma is. A második pedig az, hogy csapatkapitánya volt ennek a csapatnak, és hát abban az időben azért nem úgy volt, hogy válasszák azt, hogy ki legyen csapatkapitány, hanem azért általában a legjobb futballista volt mindig a csapatkapitány, akinek a irányítását azt el kellett tudni fogadni.
Compared to the ordinary citizen, the wages earned by Puskás were not substantially higher. But being a star player and being regarded as a symbol of the communist regime brought with it numerous other benefits.
Jó szíve volt egy játékos társ, aki nagyon szeretett. Patyinak hívták, ő volt a Kispestben a középhátvéd. Nagyon beteg lett, tüdőbeteg. Nem volt elég pénze. Volt a magyar honvédelmi miniszter akkoriban, öcsi ritkán vette föl az egyenruhát. Fölöltözött őrnagyi egyenruhájába, ott állt a honvédelmi miniszter előszobájába, vagy ült, 5 nagykövet, 10 tábornok. Öcsi bement, kinyitott az ajtót, belépett a honvédelmi miniszter szobájához, de ide figyeljen, a Patyi Miska beteg, sürgősen kórházba kell vinni. Külön ágyas szoba a honvédkórházban, megértette? Tisztelget, elment, Patyi Miska meggyógyult.
Puskás was a player whose extraordinary capability with his left foot dazzled defences. In 84 games for Hungary, he scored 83 goals. That's a record that no one in international football has ever beaten. An injury in the first round of the 1954 World Cup meant it was a below-par Puskás who played against West Germany in the final. There are a number of candidates for the best player never to win a World Cup winner's medal, but Puskás came the closest. His late equaliser in the final was disallowed, and gone was his chance. In the acrimonious aftermath of the Hungarian uprising, Puskás was accused of being unpatriotic for not returning to Hungary after a foreign tour. He was also falsely charged with having embezzled funds on a tour to South America. He had fled to Vienna in October 1956 before eventually making his way to Spain, where he signed for Real Madrid in 1958, marking the beginning of a brilliant new career in Spain.
El mejor jugador que he tenido yo, he estado 12 años con él, ha sido Di Stéfano, eso sí, no cabe la menor duda. Luego he tenido a Puskás también, dos jugadores de élite, grandísimos jugadores de fútbol, que eso es muy difícil, es como tener 2 Pelés, 2 Maradonas en un equipo, eso fue fabuloso.
By the time Puskás had joined Real, the Spaniards had already won 3 consecutive European Cups. Their inspiration, an Argentine who had left his country in 1949 after a players' strike, and who had spent 4 years playing in a rebel league in Colombia. Alfredo Di Stéfano is still regarded by many who saw him play as the greatest footballer of all time.
Y cuando era pequeño, que me iba a decir que pateara con la derecha y que pateara con la izquierda. Y eso es lo que vale, la cosecha que uno realiza, es la cosecha de la calle, ¿no? El aprendizaje de la calle, la universidad de la calle.
Twice voted European Footballer of the Year, there was talk of Di Stéfano being a tyrant. You had to accept his authority or you were out.
Como siempre voy a manifestar, si no es por tus compañeros, tú no vas a estar ahí arriba. Cuando te dan el trofeo, le decís gracias, pero gracias a mis compañeros también.
Everyone present at Hampden Park in Glasgow at the Real Madrid Eintracht Frankfurt European Cup final in 1960 will say they were privileged to have been at the greatest game of football ever played.
Real Madrid took command. The great Di Stefano levelled the score. Again, the ball was in the German danger zone. This time it was secured by the Hungarian Puskás. He made no mistake. A good pass found the brilliant Puskás. The Hungarian marvel made it 5-1.
Puskás scored 4 and Di Stefano claimed a hat-trick as Real won 7-3 to win a 5th consecutive European Cup.
Yo he tenido 4 entrenadores y con los 4 he ganado Copa de Europa y he quedado campeón de Liga. O sea, que no era muy importante el entrenador, era más importante los jugadores que había.
The social status of footballers was not lost on some of the more unscrupulous members of the public. In 1963, whilst on a tour to Venezuela, Di Stefano was kidnapped. He wasn't kept for long. The kidnappers got their publicity, but realized any harm to Di Stefano would hurt them more than help them.
Porque nadie quiere estar retenido por la fuerza. Reconozco que me trataron bien, por eso estoy aquí sentado, y que ellos hicieron algo por su país, que no sé si lo habrán conseguido o no lo consiguieron, pero que yo, indiscutiblemente, esta gente la disculpo porque tenían su misión, ¿no?
In the 1960s, few could question the right of Pelé to be called the king of football.
Eu sempre falei, e faço às vezes uma comparação, porque o dom que Beethoven teve, não é músico com 5 anos, o dom que Miguel Ângelo teve para pintar, isso foi uma coisa que Deus escolheu. E escolheu Pelé para jogar futebol. Então eu acho que o futebol é um formador, né, de homens, porque disciplina, é saúde, e principalmente nos países pobres como o nosso. Porque os países mais avançados, as crianças começam na escola, como na Europa, nos Estados Unidos, no Japão. Primeiro as crianças vão na escola, vão no colégio, aí vão para a faculdade, e aí eles se formam profissionais de qualquer esporte. No Brasil, nos lugares mais pobres, Não, o garoto ele busca a sua vida já no futebol.
At the 1958 World Cup, a 17-year-old Pelé was instrumental in Brazil's triumph. The reason for his famous tears could be traced back 8 years to the 1950 World Cup.
Foi a primeira vez que eu vi o meu pai chorando, porque o Brasil perdeu do Uruguai, 2-1. Aí eu perguntei pro meu pai, por que o senhor está chorando aí? Porque eu falei, o Brasil perdeu do Uruguai e aquela festa que não vamos ter mais. Aí eu me lembro que eu até falei pro meu pai, era garoto, 10 anos, né, 9 para 10 anos, falei, não se preocupa que eu vou ganhar uma Copa do Mundo pro senhor.
In November 1969, Pelé scored the 1,000th goal of his career. It is a measure of true greatness in any player when he takes an unfashionable club to the very peak of the world game. That's exactly what Pelé did with Santos.
É uma coincidência, mas realmente, normalmente, uma estrela faz com que o time, entende, seja às vezes superior ou diferente do outro. Você pode pegar que todas as equipes que foram grandes equipes no mundo teve uma grande estrela.
The 1960s brought with them ever more stories of footballers determined to live life to the full, in the great tradition of Meazza and Schindler. None more so than Garrincha, the extraordinary Brazilian star. Garrincha was an extravagant womanizer and an alcoholic. Indeed, it was alcohol that caused his premature death in 1983, age 46. For many years, he had been constantly in and out of hospital after serious binges.
Uma vez eu fui lá no hospital visitar o Garrincha e cheguei lá, o médico falou para mim, pois é, não, eu estou muito feliz de ter o Garrincha aqui, tá? Mas ele assim que se recupera, que fica logo bem, é um problema, porque as enfermeiras todas fazem fila aqui no quarto, porque ele passava a ter relações sexuais com as enfermeiras, era uma verdadeira festa.
Another supremely talented player with a finger on the self-destruct button was the Manchester United and Northern Irish international George Best. Such was his talent that he was voted the greatest British player of all time.
There was one thing that I wouldn't want taken away from me, apart from my family. It would be football. That's how much it meant and still does. I just love it. I love the whole idea of great athletes and theatre and floodlights and thousands of people turning up to watch you play. It's special.
Like Di Stefano, Best never played in the World Cup finals. That has undoubtedly counted against both of them when it comes to compiling the list of all-time greats. Best's crowning achievement was winning the 1968 European Cup with Manchester United. Because of other interests, Best retired from Manchester United in 1974 at the age of 27.
Football is just another branch of entertainment, which is what Mick Jagger and the Beatles are in. And I'm just another entertainer, as far as I'm concerned.
People still talk about me because I was good at what I did. And if one person thinks I was the best at what I did, that's good enough for me. And my dad thinks I was, so that's...
In the eyes of the world, the 1970 World Cup cemented Pelé's reputation as the greatest footballer of all time. This was the first World Cup broadcast in colour to a television audience. It brought home vividly the beauty of Pelé's skills. It made Pelé the first global superstar. Pelé's success as a footballer has given him a profile few could dare dream of. Even since his retirement in 1977, the name Pelé remains one of the best known, though least copied, in the world.
Eu sou um ser humano normal, com defeitos, com vontades, com ansiedade, não é? Eu até brinco. O Pelé é um... E o Edson, que sou eu, que toma conta do Pelé. Então, são duas vidas e eu sou uma pessoa normal.
As every new talented player emerges, the inevitable question is asked, will he be another Pelé? Some would argue there never will be. The value of some superstars lies not only in what they achieve on the pitch, but also in their contribution off it. One such player was Johan Cruyff. Until the 1970s, football in Holland was in the wilderness.
We hadden het vertrouwen niet, er was geen vertrouwen in het Nederlandse voetbal. Het was dat Calvinisme, doe maar rustig, doe maar gewoon, dan doe je al gek genoeg. Dat is typisch Nederlands. En Cruyff was iemand die daar ineens bovenuit sprong, die gekke dingen deed, die ook geld wilde verdienen. Die zei, als er elke week naar mijn stadion vol zit te kijken en er kijken miljoenen televisiemensen alleen naar mij of naar ons elftal, dan moeten wij er ook wat van zien.
In 1973, Barcelona signed him from Ajax in the world's first $1 million transfer fee. In 1974, he became the first person to be voted European Player of the Year 3 times. Cruyff's rise to stardom came in the early 1970s when he led Ajax to a hat-trick of European Cup wins. Cruyff was not afraid to exploit his success for financial gain. A hard negotiator with his clubs, he was one of the first modern footballers to employ an agent.
Johan Cruyff is dus nog binnen die sterspelers nog eens van een aparte klasse, net als Beckenbauer. Cruyff was dus een allround voetbal. Dus niet alleen een jongen die centrale spits kon spelen, die dus kon scoren. Maar ook een jongen die dus nog op kon treden, wat ik dan noem als een aanvallende speelmacher. Zoals dat tegenwoordig wel meer gezien wordt. Het genie, de man met een overzicht die maar weinige spelers gegeven is.
In 1974, Holland qualified for their first World Cup final since 1938. Success in the European Cup had led to a belief that the Dutch could become world champions. In their way stood Franz Beckenbauer and a West German team that 2 years before had become European champions for the first time.
Ja, Franz Beckenbauer ist sicherlich die Lichtgestalt im deutschen Fußball. Nicht nur, weil er als Spieler natürlich einer der weltbesten Spieler aller Zeiten ist. Er hat dort Standards gesetzt, hat natürlich als Spieler die Weltmeisterschaft geholt, mit Bayern München international top gespielt.
The historical enmity between the two nations gave this Cruyff versus Beckenbauer encounter a cutting edge. With just over a minute gone, Cruyff had won a penalty. The Germans equalised with another penalty halfway through the first half, before scoring the winner just before the break. Putting the individual ahead of the team has become a Dutch trait since Cruyff. Here, he never recovered his composure after the Germans took the lead, instead fighting a personal duel with the respected English referee Jack Taylor.
Cruyff was nooit gelukkig met de arbitrage. Cruyff was altijd aan het protesteren, aan het lullen, aan het regelen, aan het dirigeren. Hij had ook altijd oog overal, hij zag alles, hij hoorde alles, hij voelde alles. En toen was hij misschien iets te veel daarmee bezig, omdat hij niet helemaal lekker in zijn vel zat.
Cruyff was always said that losing the World Cup final meant nothing to him, that his innovative brand of total football was far more important. But Beckenbauer was an innovator too. He is widely credited with inventing the concept of the attacking defender, the libero.
Der war so gebaut, der hat festgestanden wie der König beim Schachspiel. Und ja, dann hat er die Tore gemacht. Das war unnachahmlich. Ich sagte schon, dann ist er nach vorne gegangen, zum Tor hin und hat die Abwehr mitgelockt. Und dann ist er zurück und dann hat er den Ball von hinten geholt. Das kann man nicht nachmachen. Und das ist die Größe der Spieler, dass jeder das Besondere mitbringt. Jeder einzelne Spieler.
Both Beckenbauer and Cruyff were absent from the next World Cup. Beckenbauer had retired from international football in 1977, and in a sign that footballers were beginning to see themselves as even more important than the game itself, Cruyff refused to travel to Argentina, saying simply that he'd promised his wife he wouldn't. In the late 1970s, football witnessed the rise of the only player who could with justification be regarded in the same class as Pelé. It's a debate that rages today. Who is better, Pelé or Diego Maradona?
Es feo que lo diga yo, ¿no? Pero vos fíjate que en la FIFA, por ahí hablar bien de Maradona es pecado, ¿viste? ¿Por qué? Porque quizás como Platini, como Pelé, Beckenbauer lo van a la FIFA, entonces entre los tres están los mejores tres del mundo. ¿Me entendés? Entonces cuando yo le gané, los limpié a todos, era que yo pasé al bando contrario. No, yo jugué al fútbol como ellos, lo que pasa es que ellos se pusieron la corbata, que es distinto, ellos no nacieron como dirigentes, ¿eh? No, ellos nacieron futbolistas.
From humble beginnings in the Via Fiorito on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, Diego Maradona has throughout his life experienced adulation to an unprecedented degree. Yet at the same time, Maradona has struggled to shake off what he sees as the stigma of his impoverished childhood. For 5 seasons during his teens, Maradona played for Argentinos Juniors. In 1980, he signed for Boca Juniors, the club he had supported as a boy, in a record deal for a teenager. The one season he spent with them was a phenomenal success. Boca won the championship in style. Barcelona paid a world record $6 million for his signature. His 2 years in Spain were not a success, culminating in the fiasco of the 1984 Kings Cup final against Athletic Bilbao. At the end, Maradona was involved in a free-for-all. He was fed up with the taunts and insults continually hurled at him by players and fans alike.
Conmigo fue terrible. Toda la cancha gritándome indio, 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 y yo no me llevé la flecha. Qué lástima. Pero bueno, le hice 2 goles.
In 1984, another world record transfer fee, the first over $10 million, saw Maradona move home to Naples, a city starved of success on the football field. Maradona transformed Napoli, a club that had yet to win a championship, into a major force in much the same way Pelé had done with Santos, though how club president Corrado Fellino could afford the transfer was a source of heated debate.
Y mira, yo no sé muchas cosas del pase, como lo hizo Fellaini.
There was always an uneasy relationship between the two, though on the surface, it looked like a marriage made in heaven.
Y Fellaini le tiró, no sé con quién, le tiró un presidente. Digo, mirá dónde me vine a meter yo. Salgo de allá de Barcelona, que no podías hablar con el presidente Zúñiga, se cree que el rey Juan Carlos, te juro por Dios. Y me parece, digo, que me metí en una peor.
In his first 2 seasons at Napoli, Maradona didn't win a trophy, but then came the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. It's been said that the World Cup has been won single-handedly just twice, by Garrincha in 62 and by Maradona in 86.
Generoso, valiente, con gran sentido de equipo y muy responsabilizado en cuanto a su capacidad. Él sabía lo que representaba para ese equipo y lo que representaba para Argentina y no se conformaba con menos que ser campeón del mundo y mejor jugador del mundo.
The two sides of his character were evident in the quarter-final victory over England. First came his Hand of God goal. In the Anglo-Saxon world, the name Maradona became a byword for cheating. 4 minutes later came a goal as brilliant as any witnessed in the World Cup, or indeed in any other game.
El jugador inglés es el más noble que existe en el mundo, seguramente. Esto no me cabe la menor duda. O sea, ojo, entran fuerte, no son ningún de pecho, pero ellos van siempre a la pelota, y si no tienen posibilidad de agarrar la pelota, es un juego para ellos. Cosa que los sudamericanos no entendemos.
In the final, it was Maradona's sublime pass which put Burruchaga through to score the winner. Maradona had achieved what he set out to do as a young boy. He now had to match his success with Argentina with trophies at Napoli.
Sí, me divertí mucho con la Juve porque el tema era que cuando yo llegué a Nápoles me decían que le gane la Juve. Le ganamos la Juve. Cuando ganamos la Juve, ahora queremos los Scudetto.
And that's what he did. The following summer, Napoli won their first ever championship, the Scudetto. For Neapolitan fans, so often the butt of jokes of northern Italian supporters, Maradona was a saint who could do no wrong. Soon, though, the affections of Neapolitans became a suffocating embrace. Maradona's wasn't the lifestyle of fine restaurants, film premieres and catwalk shows, but of dark nights escaping the pressures. There were stories of his growing use of cocaine and of sexual orgies, along with a painful court case concerning an illegitimate son.
Esploso l'artista, non è mai nato l'uomo con tutto il suo sistema di controlli, chi ne ha di più, chi ne ha di meno, perché poi è molto facile parlare degli uomini e degli autocontrolli, ma qualche volta gli autocontrolli degli uomini producono anche dei grandi mostri, insomma. Ecco, lui certamente non è un mostro, è l'inverso, è un personaggio un po' da Alice nel Paese delle Meraviglie.
Despite the growing pressures, Maradona led Napoli to a second Scudetto in 1990. Whilst Milan were dominating the European Cup, at home they played second fiddle to the Southerners. Yet within Napoli, cracks were beginning to appear.
Dopo il primo scudetto, è arrivato il secondo. Che pensa?
Penso che questi altri 2 scudetti in mezzo non li abbiamo vinti. Comunque i prossimi
mamma mia, guarda, no? Ma Presidente, lo dobbiamo lasciare anche che vinca un altro, no? Se no è
l'anno prossimo che
noioso.
Cosa vinciamo?
Vediamo, la Coppa dei Campioni la vuole, Presidente?
E allora bisogna pensarci seriamente per l'anno prossimo.
Ma non mi ha detto che pensa di questo scudetto?
Bellissimo.
Della squadra soprattutto.
La squadra è stata molto forte,
sì?
È stata molto forte, con un grande capitano, un grande pubblico.
E un grande Presidente.
Grazie.
1990 was also the year Italy hosted the World Cup. A World Cup in which Maradona tested the patience of many Italians to the limit. In his 7 years in Naples, Maradona had restored a sense of pride to the South. But when Italy met Argentina in the semi-finals in Naples, Maradona asked the Neapolitans to support Argentina.
Noi se avessimo giocato sempre a Roma, secondo me non avremmo mai perso, avremmo vinto il campionato mondiale. Cambiando città, andando a Napoli, Napoli città di Maradona, si è rotto un filo in particolare che c'era con lo stadio di Roma.
Maradona said, "For 364 days of the year you were considered to be foreigners in your own country. I am a Neapolitan for 365 days of the year." He had been upset when the Argentine anthem had been booed by the Italian crowd in the previous round. When Argentina won, many Italians never forgave him. A year later, he failed a drugs test, a victim, he claims, of a vendetta against him by the authorities.
Io tornai a Napoli e cercai di incontrarlo. Ebbene, stette 2 giorni chiuso dentro, avvolto in una coperta, in una crisi fortissima. Dopo 2 giorni disse io parto. E lui è partito con un dolore enorme, ma ha voluto partire perché a quel punto il campionato non poteva più farlo e si erano rotti anche un po' i rapporti definitivamente con la società.
Maradona had lost the 1990 World Cup final. He had lost the club that had brought him so much success, and he was losing his battle against cocaine addiction. Despite all this, he wanted one last effort to win the World Cup again in 1994 in America. At the age of 33, Maradona showed what he was still capable of doing. Then he tested positive in a drugs test.
Vamos a parar, muchachos. Vamos a parar de hacer estupideces y vamos a parar de engañar a la gente. Porque a mí no me dio de cocaína, me dio de efedrina. Cuando la efedrina se permite en el básquet, en el béisbol, en el hockey, y justo en Estados Unidos, ellos que son los dueños de la droga me vienen a dar a mí. Mira, yo empecé a tomar desde el 83 y jugué mundiales. Cuando uno se quiere cuidar, se cuida. No hay nada que hacer. Que yo me equivoque, no se van a equivocar todos los chicos del mundo, porque tienen padres. Pero creo que acá la cosa es Maradona. Maradona, y yo lucho todos los días para que esto no ocurra por mis hijas, pero no por lo que dicen los demás.
Pressures like those facing Maradona are an everyday occurrence in modern football. The way those pressures are coped with goes a long way to defining those superstars who succeed and those who fall by the wayside. At France 98, Zidane proved that he was a worthy successor in the traditions of the superstar. The plight of Ronaldo in the final was a reminder how transient success can be, not just for the superstars, but for all players.
O jogador de futebol é um trabalhador como outro qualquer. Tem os bem remunerados e os outros que ganham bem menos, né? Na verdade, 10% dos jogadores de futebol no mundo ganham bem. O resto são assalariados e passam fome. E o que, infelizmente, são menos noticiados do que os que ganham mais.
Above all, football is a team game. How often do we hear the refrain that no player is bigger than the club or country he plays for? But in the words of the Scottish historian Thomas Carlyle, no great man lives in vain. The history of the world is but a biography of great men. The history of football is no different.